gorgeous, I'm the Fairy Voice Mother, and today I'm going to be reacting to Disturbed performing The Sound of Silence live on a show. This has been a very popular request ever since I started making these reaction video things. Apparently you can't even really call yourself a YouTube reaction lady person, not that anyone wants to call themselves that, until you have watched and analysed this performance, so
today is the day!
The Sound of Silence is actually something I long for, desperately. I live on a main ambulance route and the sirens are so frequent to the point where if I need to set a 10-minute timer for something, I could just wait for the next siren. That's actually how I cook. Say it says 25 minutes, I'll say, oh, that's 2 and a bit sirens, and then I'll have to go and get it out the oven. I definitely know a thing or two about being disturbed, so this should be right up my street, like the ambulances are. I guess being in the ambulances is worse, to be fair. Anyway.
Please welcome Disturbed!
Blimey, he's excited. Good sign.
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
Oof, that's warm.
I've come to talk with you again. Because a vision softly creeping left its seeds while I was sleeping, and the vision that was planted in my brain still remains within the sound of silence.
A lot of restraint. He is actively constricting the space in his throat to mean that the voice has a slightly smaller quality to it. These are your vocal cords, stretching and slacking in here. A little flap, your little epiglottis that comes over when you do things such as swallow, will slightly close over the cords where they're doing their little flappy thing in here to mean that the sound is amplified in a small environment. Now if I were to add twang down there, it would sound extremely small. That would be quite an undesirable timbre for me to choose. However, because his voice is so big and his vocal cords are so thick, everything is massive. So when he adds a little bit of twang on that, actually what you get is this extremely balanced, bright sound.
Creeping.
That is very shrunk. He's keeping his embouchure so tight to minimise projection and to encourage this twang technique, which gives it this very bright, piercing quality. And this is why, Fairy Voice children, that vocal technique is not one size fits all. If you are blessed with, actually, look at the size of his neck. The width of that neck, my God. There is a lot of tissue there just waiting to be flapped. That is an exciting prospect. If this guy isn't gonna scream at me or growl at me, I'm gonna walk around with this decorative pine cone on my head for the rest of the day. No video of mine is complete without a neck girth discussion, so we've got that out of the way. We can move on now. He also looks menacingly calm too. There's fire behind those eyes, but I'm not disturbed yet, so.
And touch the sound of silence. And
That's
in
nice.
the naked light I saw 10,000 people, maybe more. People talking without speaking. People hearing without listening. People writing songs. And voices never share.
A bit of distortion in that.
No one dare disturb the sound
Oh, lovely.
of silence.
You hear how the vocal cords came apart there? Sound for that kind of breathy, more open quality, and then of silence. That connection. He's controlling this twang technique, much like you would control the biting point in a car. Like when you put the clutch down to change gear, you just want to do it just enough, so you change gear and then you release it perfectly to go faster. So that's what he's doing. He's adding it on certain notes that he needs to add it on so they don't get too big, but then as his vocal cords slack and the notes descend, you can hear how he gently lifts the twang off and creates a much more open space in his throat for the sound to resonate. Let's split the night. Very clever. Also, I love this. It's fabulous. Is that permanent?
Can I try one?
Full say now you do not know.
It's building.
Silence like a cancer grows. Hear my words and I might teach you. Take my arms and I might reach you.
I love that. There's a tongue manipulation there. When you tense the tongue in that shape, it actually gives you access to overtones as well. Ooh, you hear the other notes in there just by that tension in the tongue. And he's brought that into so you get kind of little overtone in that note, which is a bit of a treat, isn't it? He also used a technique here, which I like to call
The breath-based.
the breath boost is when you start a syllable or a word with H, even though it doesn't have an H in it. Hear my words that I might teach you. This could potentially be tactical, because when you add
The breath-based.
it's a sudden flood of air from your diaphragm up through your vocal tract, and it encourages the chords to stay a little bit more separate. It gives it a bit of a blast. Ha! Ha ha! Now what this can encourage is distortion, because types of distortion such as growling and fry screaming is when there's little excess air and the vocal cords are slightly separate to allow breath to come through. So by beginning to add excess breath through the vocal cords, he's encouraging the vocal cords to potentially stay a little bit more separate, ha ha, as opposed to ah, where the vocal cords are very closed. If I wanted to add distortion halfway through a song, I would definitely add a few H's in before to train my chords and prepare them to kiss one another goodbye for a second while I flap you. Ho! He's been consistently building, and there's still like a minute and a half left of this video. He can leave me waiting. Treat him mean, keep him keen. Definitely keen.
But my
Oh, that's that big thing.
like silent raindrops fell,
Oh,
echoed in the
what's
wells
that bit?
of silence.
Well, just above the note then below.
And the people bowed and prayed to the neon god they made. And the sign lashed out its warning. And the words that it was forming. And the sign said the words of the prophets are written on the subway walls and tenement halls, whispered in the sound of silence.
Bloody gorgeous. Oh. Oh, it's amazing. What an absolutely beautiful use of distortion. That was better than I expected. Oh, do you know what? That was f***ing amazing. Let's just watch that little distortion bit again.
And the people bowed and prayed to the neon god they made. And the sign lashed out its warning. The words of the prophets are written on the subway walls.
I'm definitely going to watch this at least 50 more times. There are many technical reasons to adore this performance. The distortion that he used was extremely well controlled. He maintained perfect pitches and he moved in and out of slightly different intensities of distortion, sometimes taking it away completely for certain notes and then adding it, insinuating that he has exceptional control over his vocal cords and that he's very experienced and proficient, etc. We know. But this was exceptional vocal artistry because of how he arranged where the distortion was going to come in. I was expecting distortion from the beginning, but I think I was expecting something a little bit more virtuosic. But what I got instead was a beautiful palette of vocal sounds. And the owner of this palette of vocal sounds happened to be a master craftsman and cherry-picked which of his sounds was appropriate where. He knew best. He knew what I wanted more than me. This singer must be acutely aware of how to make his audience feel certain things at certain times. Like, just because you can do a backflip, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be cutting around Lidl doing backflips up and down the aisles. To be honest, I will be overcome with emotions such as shock and awe and an intense admiration for the athleticism required. But would it move me? I don't know. This analogy is getting a bit out of control now. The meaning of the song was a lot more important to him than his vocal prowess. However, he still obviously managed to use several of the tricks up his sleeve, and I'm convinced he's got more. If we'd maybe never considered using distortion in our own voice before, because we'd associated distortion with, you could maybe consider, like, hey, maybe these extreme vocal techniques are something that actually might be a very appropriate vehicle for my vocal expression. So if distorting your voice is something you might like to try, but you've never really considered it or wouldn't know how to get into it, it's very important to start this distortion journey playfully. So a little exercise or game that you can try is to close your lips gently and relax the face muscles, and then experiment with the kind of different sounds that you can produce. You should feel absolutely no discomfort or pain or scratching of any kind. If you start to cough excessively, it means that you're using way too much breath and the vocal cords and the glottis are getting a little bit annoyed. So if that happens, you should then hum cleanly. And then once you've had a little bit of a drink of water, you can come back to it as you feel like you've really nailed a certain strain of distortion. Then you can begin to open the lips and see what that sounds like out in the room. For example. All kinds of fun will be had, especially for your neighbours and cohabitors. Don't try and add lyrics before you feel very, very confident just holding an open vowel with a distortion. Adding lyrics the way that he's doing to distorted vocals is very difficult. And when we have that pressure of shaping lyrics, we can sometimes push too hard because we're just so desperate to get the word pray on a scream. You need to establish the actual vocal cord and all the tissue kind of coordination before you even think about moving around all of these articulators. So anyway, oh, I'm so glad I finally got to see that. I did actually find watching that extremely spiritual. Something about his presence and his energy, especially at the end, how he kind of was just like, you know, I'm at your service, followers. I feel like I should kiss his toes or something. Oh, come here, tell me, who was it? Was it that postman again? That bar. Why don't you go and have a nap? You have a nap? Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed making it. If there are any singers you would like to see me react to, please do let me know in the comments, as it is always my pleasure. I love you so very much. Have an amazing day, and I'll see you again next time.